Good evening and welcome to the Science of Mind Thursday teaching. Thank you. Hi, Reverend Judy. Hello, everyone. So welcome to the Thursday. Hey, Reverend Robert and everyone else, welcome. Now, for a brief second, we're going to introduce Jimmy back. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to our Thursday Louise self-healing class. It's a beautiful day at the center today, and we're so happy to have all of you on the call. Thank you, Anthony. I'd wanted him to do the introduction, but we didn't plan it well, but next time we do it well. I'd like us to start with an affirmative prayer before we invite Dr. Greg for the lesson today. Can I please call on Reverend Robert for the opening affirmative prayer, please?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Not yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can't?
We can hear you very loud and clear. We can.
Okay, great. So let's go within, all of us together, as a community, as a family, as loving spiritual beings, opening up our minds, our hearts, our souls to this evening's class, to thrive by means of the words spoken by our pastor, knowing and accepting that we are surrounded by the supreme intelligence, that there's one life, one presence. That life is the life of each one here, intelligent, empowered. Through all and as all. So we move forward today in a comforting, calm poise of acceptance of the words spoken, knowing that it will empower each of us to move forward, leveling up in consciousness to that greater desire for greater good, greater peace, greater joy, greater love, not only within ourselves, but within all of humanity, to make a peaceful world unfold by means of each one's consciousness here tonight. So we are that consciousness of love, and I release that love, I release that power, I release that good into a universe of the oneness of spirit that accepts it as the truth for each one here, as we give great thanks, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you so much, Reverend Robert. Thank you, and once again, I welcome everybody to Thursday self-healing class, and we're always very happy and glad to have all of you on the call with us. And I'd like to just give a few announcements before, and probably we'll watch one or two video clips, one of the new ones that we have, just to remind us that July 11 we'll have our party, and it will be at the center, 204 West 84th Street. It will be after the Sunday gathering, and Anthony is in charge, and he's seriously planning for this gathering. We expect to see all of you, and it will be a pleasant surprise also to see Reverend Shane here with us that day. We look forward to seeing you. Then we have our class that is coming up, Power of Decision, July 13. And so many people have sent mails and called me and are registering for the class. It will be July 13 at 3 p.m. Tuesday. And the registration fee, once again, is $130 if you're paying upfront. But if you want to pay weekly, it will be $25 weekly. And we'll expect and look forward that everyone concerned would want to pay upfront. Thank you so much. Would like to play one of our new video clips for us before we invite Dr. Greg for the lesson today. Thank you.
Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lies everything, the bliss of growth, the glory of power. And it goes on to say, for today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. As we can begin to refuse to carry our troubles with us. Ernest Holmes' idea that we're carrying around a lot of hurts and corpses and bodies. And these are the mistakes of yesteryear and the mistakes of yesterday. These are the grievances. This is the anger. This is the stuff that perpetually weights us down. People have a lot of pain, emotional pain, a lot of misery. And there's a lot of suffering that people have. They suffer over, but all the things that people suffer about, things like their employment or lack of employment, and their worry about their future, and their worries about getting older, and their worries about their health and their wealth, and the fact that they're not tapping into their creative potential, and their lives aren't working the way they want them to. So there's a tremendous amount of worry and misery, and people are living in places in the world where there's no freedoms and the inability to live and be who they are. We're conscious and we're aware that, there's a lot of suffering in the world. And people carry a lot of burdens. In our day-to-day living, many of us ruminate the past. And by that I mean you think about all the things, the people who have left you, the people who have died, the things that you wish you had done differently, the experiences that you wish you had taken advantage of. And when we're doing that, we're really, really living in the past. And it's not terribly productive, actually. Unless, if you're drawing from the past to create a better tomorrow, a better present moment, it's detrimental to us moving forward. The good of the present day is often sandwiched between two impossible situations. The impossible situations are the living in the pain of what's gone wrong in the past with your families and your relationships and what you're left with. And you might think of all your negativity and programming, and you might think that that's too much to deal with. And now you come into our teaching and we teach you that we're each 100% responsible for all of our life. And that's not particularly comforting when we first hear it, because we're thinking now they're blaming us for the life that we lived, 20, 30 years ago. And we are not. We're just simply saying in the teaching that we are creating our life by means of our consciousness. Consciousness you can think of as a synonym to the word awareness. Whatever it is that lives inside of anybody, the sum total of their awareness plays out in their life. That's their consciousness. It's neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. And when we teach you about the law of mind, we're always going to tell you that it's reflective. It's like a mirror. Whatever lives in your heart, in your mind, and in your consciousness is the very thing that puts the mind and the law into action. As within, so without. There's freedom once you realize that. Because you realize, my goodness, I could change this stuff. But that's not exactly what most people do. Most people go the other direction and they do the blame game. Or they go into a place, these terrible places in consciousness where you're full of remorse and grief. The day be sufficient unto the day, and let us find the goodness in this day. That will always be the answer to learn to live the affirmative life. We talk a lot about changing our mind or changing our thoughts, the tendency of thoughts, if you want to change your life. From Mark Twain, he wants us to make room for the good to happen. He wants us to relieve ourselves of the unneeded weight. This is what today we'd call emotional baggage, worry or doubt. A little weight or ballast is important. Excess baggage, in other words, even if it's emotional baggage, will definitely weigh you down and prevent you from going forward. The New Thought movement has helped people achieve a better understanding of divine mysteries through the power of their thinking and through meditation, prayer. The term New Thought signified that one's thought could unlock secrets to living a better life, free from constraints of religious doctrines and dogmas. In Maine, Quimby talked and taught that the mind has the power to heal. Illness is a matter of the mind. What are we doing about this challenge here? With the knowledge in our hands and the willingness to actively step out of denial, we would suggest in our own lives that we learn to be relevant. It doesn't matter if I'm 60 something or you're 50 something or you're 70 something. It doesn't matter. To be relevant, you have to be current. And to be current, you have to have the willingness to learn. And you have to have the willingness to learn and step out of your comfort zone and sometimes push yourself a little bit. I was taught in religious science years ago that, this teaching is about stretching. Stretching means stretching outside of everything you've known and stepping forward to do something different. Because the thing about life is life goes forward with you or without you. And if you want to be on the cutting edge of anything, you've got to do your part. You've got to take the course. Life is a lifelong learning process. And right now, it's no different than it's ever been before. There's new things on the table, new things to deal with, and new things to embrace. I've always maintained from the teaching, if it's in my life, it's in my consciousness, and it's there, and there's something for me to address. So there's no point in cursing what's here and talking about ain't it awful or poor me, because that's not what we do. We understand that everything that happens in life is here for us to grow and to evolve, and it's happening for us, not to us. Each week we are to aim for the heart. Each week we're here to let people know how wonderful they are. Each week we're here to remind people of the truth of who they are, that they exist as pure potential, that they are one with the one. Each and every message is targeted, and its purpose is to let you know of the truth of you, the greatness of you. I've got to go out there, and I want to go out there, cause you to remember that you are one with the one, and you have everything that you possibly could ever need. Keep pointing people to the mystery. Keep pointing people to the truth of who they are. The greatest mystery of life is that spark of divinity which is within you. And you're always looking for something outside of you, where in the end you realize there is no place like home. In you is what you're looking for. Our job as practitioners and ministers is to keep pointing people to the mystery. Every week, in every class, there is a reminder, pointing them toward the awareness of presence. Presence in them, a love and energy operating through them that's always wooing, always guiding, always trying to get your attention. The truth that you know that God in you is in you, operating through you, as you, is something that is one of the best kept secrets of all time. But whether you take it into your heart and really understand that you have the power and you have the ability to transform life by means of your consciousness. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday evening class. Special welcome to the people on Instagram and YouTube and the people who will be finding us in the weeks to come. And then those of you on the Zoom call who I can observe. I think that tonight is exactly a year that we've been doing our live broadcasts on Instagram. We were looking at the documents earlier today. And now we're meeting again on YouTube each week, Zoom and Facebook. So it gets better and better, and we're getting better at it. I'm seeing some smiling and chewing faces, eating snacks with us. It's really good. And we really are looking to have those of you who are in New York to come visit us again
It's time for us to step up and get involved and get out of inertia. Those of you who are still in inertia. Tonight, we're going to be talking about change and changing a little bit. Learning to love ourselves through change. I know some of you, many of you have been doing work on yourselves. And for those of you who have been committed to this process, we're going to postulate and say that change can be wonderful. It's not wonderful for everybody, but it can be wonderful. And it can be difficult also. And we know this. So I'll throw out a few questions for you to ponder. Are you worried, any of you, about anything that's going on in your life? You can think about that for a second. Were you concerned about something that's going on with your family, your parents, maybe a significant other? And I'll ask the question of people, in the room and out of the room, is there something bothering you? Are you worried about something? And if I throw that question out, most people, as they think about their relationships and their health, and most people are worried about something. The first thing to know is it's somewhat normal to be concerned about things that are happening in your world. You'd probably be abnormal if you didn't have some type of concern. Most people have been programmed to be afraid of a lot of things. What is it for you as you think about it? Because we have lots of tools for helping people get through these types of times. And we have and things that we'll teach you in our classes. Maybe this week, some of you are worried about financing. I was reading the newspaper recently. The cost of everything seems to be rising and rising. If you listen to the news right now, it's a big concern for many people. Some of the people I've been talking to lately have been dealing with health challenges, several. I've gone through health challenges myself. Are you worried about your health or perhaps somebody else's health? The thing that we pay attention to here Thursdays in particular, but all the time, is our habituated thought, our thinking. If we're habitually going there towards worry, or if we go towards what's wrong, or what's wrong with life, if you're doing that, and if you're going towards worry habitually, then you're going to be heading towards trouble. I mean, that's simply the law of life. So we want to deal with life on life's terms, of course, but we want to pay attention if we are embodying a lot of unnecessary worry. So this is a theme for healing yourself. People worry about all kinds of things. Their weight, I can relate, their health, their blood pressure. They worry about their business, or maybe post-COVID, their lack of business. They worry about their girlfriends, their boyfriends. They're worrying about so many things and wondering about many things. When I first put this talk together, ideas of it, we were going through COVID. Now this is post-COVID, right? And some of us have adapted and learned how to thrive, and many of us are still trying to figure it out. Like, who am I going to be now that COVID is over? What am I going to do? My way of living has changed. The place I'm living has changed. Everything has changed. If you looked at New York right now, you'd say New York has changed. In this very building, 7 businesses are gone that used to thrive here. 7 businesses, and this is just one little building in New York City. So things are different. I've seen people quit jobs, and I've seen people just quit. I have a reverend friend who just pretty much is isolated for the past 2 years, and I don't think the person's been out of her house more than half a dozen times. And I wonder, who's going to thrive and who's going to make it. Of course, that's not my business, but it does make you wonder. And sadly, I've spoken to a few who feel it's too late for them. I know a couple people in their 60s and 70s, even one that's younger, who have concluded that they're too old and it's too late. I can think of one person who's in his 50s and he's just decided he's retired. So, people carry on a lot of conversations within themselves. And these are the kind of things that ministers and practitioners listen to all the time. And how do I tell them? How do, my ministers tell them that all this stuff is a lie, the stuff that they're entertaining? I mean, here it is. It's true for them, of course, but it's still, in truth, it's a lie. People are supplied and supported. The universe supports, it responds, but there's consciousness, right? And so when you say it's over, I promise you, it is over. And many people, have a lot of ideas about things. And that's one of the reasons you come here each week, because we'll teach you ways to neutralize the negative and to embrace the positive, and maybe even help you come figure out who you came to this planet to become. Because if you're habituating and hanging on to a lot of stuff, it might be very true for you as you hang on to it. And I will listen, and Reverend Judith and Reverend Joyce and Reverend Robert will listen with compassion to you, even though you're telling us a big fib sometimes. I used to have a minister, Elijah, practitioner in Florida, and I always had people talk to Elijah, because Elijah listened to the stuff for a while, right? And then he'd say, and then there is God, and he'd go right into treatment, because, we're not here to support the story. We're here to support the truth. And that's the best way we can support you, which is supporting the higher idea of you as a connected being, as a being of light and wonder. When people are caught up into worry and doomsday thinking and all the negativity, they develop feelings, right? A concept I learned in 1980 through a recovery program, which has informed me well over the years, is that feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. And my feelings will follow my thoughts. So if I've got a bunch of negative thinking and I'm perpetually pessimistic, I'm not going to be feeling good. So I always had that backwards. I could be caught up in feelings and stay there. So I remember having a sponsor type person in 1980 who said, you need to get up and move. I'll listen to this negative thinking for about 10 more minutes, but you need to get up and start moving. Change your thinking, and you'll begin to change your life. Take some steps. We have a saying in religious science, which is, as we do affirmative prayer, treat, and then move your feet. Just don't sit around there waiting on the Lord. There's action that's involved, because we get stuck. You remember that old song, we're stuck on a feeling? Yeah, so people get caught up in their habituated thoughts, and they're living out the same thoughts. This is the thing, we got these great minds, and we use such a small portion of our minds, right? So we have these thoughts that it's like they're on a loop over and over and over again. You think of this one person, you automatically go to your resentment. You think of this one person, you automatically. So it's tough for you to have a new moment with people, because many of us are on a perpetual loop when it comes to some people, some situations, and you're incapable of being in the present so you could reconsider everything. We live out that same song. Here's an old saying, same song, different verse, a little bit louder and now a little bit worse. So these things, they get louder and louder until eventually you learn the lesson. Anything that's happening in your life is happening for you, by the way. So if you find that there's a theme that's being repeated, try to get it this time around. Because I promise you, if you don't get the lesson this time around, the universe is so wonderful, it'll come back and present it to you in a larger way. We used to kid about it when we're new in metaphysics. They say, I wish I could learn by the little nudge rather than the big whoop or the cosmic 2x4, because the universe is designed for our success. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, the dice of God are always loaded. So you're going to get that lesson, right? You don't really even have to worry about it if you get it this time. But, I know those of you on the call really are learning to work with the law, and you want to have things move, and you want to have things move quickly, and they can. Change doesn't have to take 1,000 years, and there can be a quickening for you. It's possible for you to have, a much to live in a more transcendent way, to have the law of mind work to your advantage. But you have to be able to, slow yourself down a little bit, take a pause and start thinking differently. But going on with what I was saying before, there's a lot of people right now, I've heard from a bunch recent months, that feel pretty helpless. They're worried about their future. They don't think they're going to get where they wanted to go. There seems to be an inertia with some people. And I would say, with my little bit of clinical therapeutic background, that there's some level of depression in a whole bunch of people. And a lot of it's based upon a lie, so the things that they're all hung up on really are not truths. There's an underlying thing. I'll go right back to Louise Hay, which is, I don't matter. I don't count. What I'm doing is not important. I'm not good enough. My life doesn't matter. The people that I loved are gone, and, they find themselves, a little bit older and trying to figure out where they are and how they can, if they can get back into the game. So it's easy to see how it happens. The world gets there, and, we are so lucky in this religious science teaching, because we will give you the tools that you don't have to go to those dark places anymore. It's totally unnecessary from my vantage point. But then the other side of the coin, you could be sitting in this room and, you're stewing on this, and you're going to leave here tonight. You're going to hang on to the same stuff you've hung on to, and you're going to create the same stuff you've been creating. So Ernest Holmes said, there's power for good in the universe greater than you, and you can use it, and you can. So I'm grateful for those of you who have the persistence and resilience to keep showing up. Because if you keep staying plugged into the conversation, you're going to realize more and more that you'll say, I am cause to my own experience. Damn it and darn it, I am cause to my own experience. Because wherever and however you're pointing the finger at anyone else, you're missing the point. This teaching isn't about saving or saviors. There's nobody outside yourself ever that's going to save you. Okay. That's depressing, or it was when I first heard it. But the good news is that, so nobody's going to fix me. Okay, we get that finally. We're adults. But the good news is that change is possible, and we can evolve, we can grow, and we can grow quickly. And we can develop the consciousness to understand that all events, circumstances, and happenings are helpful. So you live in a world where you move, live, and you have your being in this unified consciousness. Call it whatever you want to. You live, move, and have your essence in it, your being in it, and it responds to you. Every thought you think is creating life. So imagine that genie in the sky. Your wish is my command. Well, that's the deal, If you keep thinking life is hard and it's too late for you, then that's going to be really what will play out. But if you're determined, absolutely determined to thrive, if you're determined to be a lifter no matter what, if you're determined to tell yourself the positive message and to move your feet and just get out of that inertia. I mean, the whole universe will support every single effort you make in that area. But you do have free will, And it is entirely up to you. So I can go over the corner and sit next to that guy, and I can talk about ain't it awful, and we can do it, and we'll agree with each other. And Emma Curtis Hopkins, or one of the old timers, used to call that the counsel of the wicked. No, I think it was her. Doesn't matter who said it. It's still the counsel of the wicked. If I go and sit, we talk like, oh, this is, did we do all the complaining? Tell me if there's anything enlightened about that. Where do you suppose to go? Where do you think you're going to take yourself with any of that? So we're talking about consciousness and the places we go in consciousness. I'm going to quote a few people tonight. We'll go for some younger ones and different ones. I've used her before once. I'm going to quote Madonna. Anybody hear of her? She's the person who became a star who couldn't sing very well. Madonna said, no matter who you are, no matter what you did, no matter where you came from, you can always change and become a better version of yourself. Well said, Madonna. She said, you must embrace change. I've talked to you in this center before about the human knowledge curve. I've spoken of it in classes. The idea is, in the theory, is all of human knowledge doubles. It used to be every 7 years, 10 years. Now it's every other day, every single day. It used to be it took 100 years for human knowledge to double. Now they think every 2 days. The sum total of human knowledge doubles. Now that's amazing. But the thing is about that is it still doesn't speak about consciousness rising. What we're teaching here and what we've taught here was known during the 1800s. It was known during the time of Ralph Waldo Emerson. They used to say of Ralph Waldo Emerson, a few from every age will understand the consciousness that was in Ralph Waldo Emerson. Our teaching is that teaching. Our teaching is that consciousness. It's a practice. It's a way of life. It's the idea that you live in a unified energy, a unitary field, as Deepak Chopra would say, that's responsive to you. And that all of life moves forward by means of our own consciousness. I mean, we're all connected and we're all moving forward together. Each of us are individualizations of this divine stuff, and the whole universe moves forward by means of us. So it's a waste of time talking about other people and what they're doing, because we have enough wisdom from these classes to know that everyone is doing the best they can with the information that they have. So you look at people, they're doing all kinds of things that you might deem wrong or crazy. And the place you want to get yourself to there is realizing that human being is doing the best they can, and hold them harmless and just keep moving on for yourself. All healing, Louise Hay so beautifully said, is self-healing. So the human knowledge may be doubling every day, but the consciousness and the awareness that we're talking about isn't necessarily. I mean, it's far more than what it was during the time of Emerson. But the masses do not know what you have. Bill Tolliver used to say, I won't say it, I'll quote him, I'll get it in that way. Bill Tolliver used to say, the masses are asses. And so, I won't say that. But what he was trying to say is that humankind, love them, we love them all from every corner of the world. They're all doing the best they can with what they got, okay? Everyone on this call could feel so fortunate and lucky to know what you know, to know that the best kept secret of the world, that Christ, that God in you, that you can connect with, that can create anything. You have been given a great gift if you have the gift of this teaching. You have the ability to step out of fear and out of the story, all the stories. So you can step out of the racket. The racket is the garbage that lives inside your head that says, I'm not okay. And whoever is caught up in what's perpetually wrong, you get to be the cheerleader. You get to be the person that, as the great, which one of these philosophers was it? Pascal, the mathematician philosopher, he said, bet on God It's a safer way to live. You get to be the person who lives from that place where you keep seeing the good, keep practicing, having the knowledge and the knowing that God is here. There's a presence and a power here in this encounter and every encounter. If you're able to practice this teaching and know that there's power available to you, and if you're able to use it this way, that lifts you above the masses, and that lifts you above the world that acts and reacts, because you will not be taking anything personally. You're going to be a person that's going to understand, okay, this is happening, this is playing out, people are doing the best they can, and what does that have to do with me? I remember from a very gifted therapist many years ago, Joyce would say, whose problem is this? As she gave me that card every week for a long time. I paid a lot of money to learn that lesson. Whose problem is it? So when you're thinking about your challenges day by day and week by week, you can ask yourself some of those questions. Whose problem is this? Because I was finding that a lot of the problems that were going on in the world, I were taking on and making my own. And what we teach you here very clearly is that we're living in the perfect place, perfect time, and all of the time. And as Louise so beautifully said, all is well. So we learn to practice the presence. I'm going to borrow from another teaching, which I love this saying, and it came from, well, it doesn't matter where it came from. It's a song, and it's the peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function, and my life. So we're here as metaphysical students, knowing that we live, move, and have our being in divine substance. And we align ourselves with the knowledge of this oneness of spirit. And we understand that having this peace, it's our goal, it's our function, it's our life. When we come from that unified place, we will be embracing wholeness and peace and prosperity and abundance. We're looking away from circumstances. Part of the thrust of religious science is always to be looking to see that we're supplied and supported. And it's more than just looking, it's understanding and realizing that we're supplied and supported. As we're able to do that, we heal our lives, and we open up avenues in consciousness so we can receive better relationships, more abundance, more peace, more health, more wholeness. It's just a natural reflection of self-knowledge. So our ability to know whether we're going to be successful in all of that, in all these areas in our life, is going to be based upon our self-knowledge and how well we love ourselves, and whether we realize that we're one with life. My notes for today's class are that we need to develop a certain flexibility, and that ability, we need to be okay when things aren't working out the way we want them to. Our flexibility and our willingness to change when things aren't working out. I go immediately to the idea that I am supplied and supported. And to the extent I'm able to do that, if I have that kind of flexibility, that's a great indicator of the success I'm going to have. When I was younger, I heard an expression, take a pause. I heard the expression, take the pause that refreshes. And I was thinking, when I was preparing the lesson, where did that phrase come from? And I looked it up when I was making my notes, and it was actually from Coca-Cola 80 years ago. And Coca-Cola was way ahead of their time with that suggestion. And they're suggesting that everybody ought to take a pause and a timeout. And I would say we ought to take a pause and a timeout to do our affirmations so we can become centered in the truth of who we are. I would suggest, the first step of treatment is the recognition that there is one power, and that power is in me, operating through me right now. And I'd like you guys to start thinking that way. I recognize and I know that there's a presence and there's a power, and that power is in me right now. And meditate more on that. Because if you really understand that you live and move and have your being in this substance that responds to you, you'll learn to live the affirmative way of life that we teach here. And it's really a smart thing to do. So Coca-Cola had it right. In the 2020s, pause has a much different word. We're pausing all over the place. We've been put on pause for a couple of years, and it's time for us to get back in business. Maybe the one thing we can learn to pause is let's start to pause the dialogue and the racket that lives within us. The term racket I learned from Landmark Education, and I've had experience with it. The racket is the inner dialogue that goes on within you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You wake up in the middle of the night, you're having a dream, it's still the racket. The racket is going on. And the racket oftentimes says something's wrong or something's wrong with you. And it's in our dreams, it's everywhere. We want to deal with that racket and those old loops. The racket represents all of the agreements. Remember the 4 agreements I taught about a few weeks ago? The agreements that you've made with everybody in the world since the time you were born. We need to examine those agreements because many of those agreements are all about self-sabotage and you trying to live up to impossible standards that were passed on to you. So all of these things are potentially self-defeating. So maybe we need to take a pause on some of that. Join in our courses each week so we can identify the things that we say to ourselves that are not true. We have a lot of habitual things that are old agreements that it would benefit us to take a second look at. Once we see that we're doing it and we develop the courage to change and stop the negative chatter, what a difference that pause can and will do for you simply by slowing down that chatter. As I said before, we self-sabotage with self-righteousness. God, I've known some ministers like that. We self-sabotage with self-righteousness. We become incapable then of being the cheerleaders when we are in judgment of everything and everyone. We become incapable of compassion when we're in that place of judgment. So this pause can restore us to right thinking as we center ourselves in the truth of knowing that we're one with God, one with Source. So let's take that pause. If you can just take a breath and slow yourself down and do that. I've been in 12-step programs, incidentally, for 41 years now. And they used to say to me from 1980, think the situation through. So here's another suggestion for anyone tonight that's going through a tough thing. You have a need to respond, react, and fight with yourself or others. Think the situation through. As you're inclined to make a retaliatory statement toward anyone or beat yourself up, think the situation through. Think before you take the next step, before you do the next thing. Another slogan, which I'm sure most of you have heard, suggestion is, because you have a great gift, you have a mind, right? So start using it. Act. Don't react so much. Take that pause and act rather than react. Sometimes the best thing to do is just take the pause, think, and you probably won't say anything. See, it's very easy to react to everything and be reactive. Most of the entire world reacts. And most of the entire world acts that way. It's not terribly intelligent. It's not terribly enlightened. And if you're always in reactivity, it won't take you where you want to go. So tonight, one of your superpowers and abilities for change will be the ability to pause. Take the pause that will refresh and slow yourself down so you can let yourself be informed by Spirit. From my 12-step background, it says this type of pausing, this type of surrendering can restore us to right thinking and sanity. and allow us to thrive. And I never liked the suggestion that I wasn't, that my thinking wasn't right or that I needed to be restored. But the fact of the matter is, if I look back at that time of my life, many of the decisions were highly questionable, somewhat crazy. So taking that pause that can allow us to connect with the truth of who we are is really an intelligent thing to do. If you slow down and you notice you're moving too fast, you can recollect yourself and you can realize the truth of you, that you are as God created you, as they say, in the light and the love and the glory. And you can awaken to the truth of who you are. So there's another old expression. I'm full of old expressions tonight. I'll probably end about here. And I love this one is, I'm only responsible for the second thought. So the first thought that can come in, it comes in. I'm only responsible for the second one. It's like what I do with it. Because the first thought could be me wanting to retaliate or be angry for something. I'm only responsible for the second thought. I don't want to live my life in reaction. I don't know about the rest of you. That's the way most people live. They're not living consciously because they're bringing all their prejudices into all their interactions, and they don't see people in a new moment. And that's what's possible here. Sometimes it seems like the world has gone crazy. Just think of the past year or two. It doesn't need to be that way for you. Just because they're all doing it, it doesn't mean you have to do it or be that person. You and I can be a source of calm and peace in the middle of any storm. If you're ready to embrace a change, a real change, you have powers within you that will attract great good. But you can learn how to use them here. Take a deep breath and pause and tell yourself, as Louise Hay so beautifully said all those years ago, all is well. And I could go on with this. This is actually part of a seminar I was working on. So I think I'll end now because I want to hear from all you beautiful faces on the other side of the screen. And the question I'm going to ask you, it's always going to be about you in this class, right? So what has it been like being you this week? And really, it isn't about the story, about what's going on with you. It's just the conversation. Have you been practicing the teaching? Have you been the cheerleader? Have you been saying, hey, I've been, have you been giving yourself the pats on the back? Have you been coming at life with positive expectancy hour by hour during the past week? So that's it. Let's see who's here. I think I see Robert up there. I see blue and a hand. So can we go to Robert? Hi, Robert.
Hi. How's everybody? Thank you, Dr. Greg. It's been great. It's been great being me. I've been with family this week, and now Judith and I talked this afternoon about our upcoming class, and this talk tonight just pumped me up, for lack of a better word, about the class, because we in this class you're going to see how to embrace change. You're going to develop flexibility. You're going to stop the worry. We're going to show you how to do spiritual mind treatment to recognize the one life in your life and to unify. So for those of you on the call, for those of you Instagram, YouTube, call